back to sample problems of gravitational force, and it's related to another topics, right? Okay, another topics because there's a lot of relation to other topics. Sure. Okay. I'll go back to business and please get a blank sheet of paper and you can solve it also by yourself because I can assure that you are better than me. Right? Okay, so a 1,500 kilogram satellite orbits the Earth at an altitude of 2.5 times 10 to the 6 meters. Wow. What is the orbital speed of the satellite? B. What is the kinetic energy of the satellite? Wow. Really? Seryoso? Okay. So, given. Okay. We have 1,500 kilograms is the mass. Honestly, guys, I don't encounter yet how to solve this. Okay? Altitude. Wow, altitude. Altitude is, and we need to remember social studies for this because it talks about altitude, right? 2.5 times 10 to the 6 meter. Okay. What is the orbital speed? Wow. Orbit speed, the orbital speed. Nakaloka naman ganito. Okay? What is the kinetic energy of the satellite? Wow. Okay. A is the orbital speed and B is the kinetic energy. Now we recall to the gravitational force formula. Fg is equals to the G times m1 times m2 over the r squared. Okay. Now we have the mass, we have the G, and I think we have also the radius. This one, altitude. But take note, this is an altitude of the Earth. Okay, so it's going to be like that, really. Okay. And then Fg, we don't have Fg yet. Okay, so what is the orbital speed? And we don't have speed in this equation. How can we relate for this? Okay, again, this is let's say a centripetal force, right? Okay, so we need to say centripetal force Fc is equal to the mass times velocity squared over r is equal to G times m raised to the power 2 because again there is only one mentioned object here, it is the Earth. Our planet Earth. So meaning to say this is now realistic. Okay, question, not hypothetical. Okay, so mass times mass is equals to m raised to the power 2 over r squared, and then do the math, simplify. So you cancel the radius in the left, and we still have radius remains in the right. Cancel also the mass in the left, and we still have the mass on the right, canceling the other one mass. Now we have the velocity. Here the velocity, it doesn't matter that it is a final velocity or initial velocity. This is only one directional velocity, which is a satellite orbit centripetal force driven velocity. Now we have velocity squared is equals to the g. The g is 6.67 times 10 to the negative 11 Newton meter squared kilogram squared. Okay, times the mass. We have the mass, right? 1,500 kilogram. I'm sorry, this is still hypothetical because the mass of the satellite is only 1,000. Yeah, that's too huge, right? Satellite. Yes, 1,500. It's okay, right? Kilogram. So cancel the kilogram like that. Okay, and what will remain will be the velocity. Okay, let's explain this. Why this Newton meter squared per kilogram times 1,500 kilogram will become the meter per second. Though we can do that directly, but we need to emphasize for the purpose of discussion. So we have Newton, right? Newton meter squared kilogram squared. And then we have also the, what's this? Kilogram, cancel the kilogram on the other right. So cancel kilogram, kilogram. So what will remain? Newton square meter kilogram, right? Newton is kilogram meter squared. Okay? And then we have still here the meter squared, yup. Okay? And we have here the kilogram, right? Cancel the other m, cancel the other m, blah blah, cancel the kilogram, cancel the kilogram. So what will remain will be meter per second. Okay? That's why it's velocity. Okay? Because this squared is still to be square root. And this is still second squared here. We'll square it, blah blah blah, chuba chuchu. Then meter squared, second squared. Then it will become meter per second, which is the velocity. So for the purpose of discussion only, why we have a unit of velocity, meter per second, in from a very complicated unit of the gravitational force constant, okay, or the Newton's law constant, okay, or the gravitational universal gravitation constant times the mass. Okay, now muna siya mass, meter per second lang ang answer after the square root. Okay, so ganon. So this is the square of this figure here. Okay, how much is this? So 6.67 exponent to the negative 11. Right, mga klase akong hitad, right? Okay, and then times, napay sa ka-artery ha, because the radius of this is not yet. Okay, wala pa man siya value. Okay, times 1.5. So equal to 1.00005 times 10 to the exponent to the 7. Negative 7, right? Yeah. Okay, we don't have the radius yet. Now, altitude is a radius or not? Answer me directly. In social studies, if we can remember, we have the equator. We have the longitude, the altitude, we have the radius. I will draw the Earth so that we can understand. We have the prime meridian, like that. If you can still remember in the social studies, we have equator. We have the equator here, and then we have the prime meridian, ganun. Longitude, longitude, right? Longitude, longitude, longitude. Okay, now we have an altitude. Our altitude starts from the center of the equator. If you can still remember our social studies, right? Here from the center. So that is an altitude of, it's mentioned, 2.5. Okay? Times 10 to the 6 meter. So meaning to say you have still the radius here. From here. Like that. Okay? So meaning to say you have still the radius there. So you need to say 2.5 times 10 to the 9 plus r. Okay, here, this is, because it's added here. The radius from plus the altitude is the height of the one longitude of the Earth. So this is the total height, right? Okay. So the total height is equivalent to one longitude. Something like that. The altitude is the half, something like that. Okay. And then this is the radius. So radius plus altitude is equals to the height. Ganon. So that distance is what we call here in the r. Because this is not the radius. This is the distance from the center from the ganon. Okay? So how can we compute the r? Okay, panitangan sa dali mo ang r, ang higayuna. Okay. Masaon man mo ana aron. Okay, so this is the Earth, ganon, okay? So, velocity is equals to 2 pi r over the time. You don't have the time, right? So, because this is the, this is the radian, no, this is the radian per second mo na siya velocity. Because this is one revolution. Because this is orbit, right? So, nakabilos ito. Makita yung dihatan. Okay, how can you compute that one? Okay, now, okay, natay ko ang formula. Okay, so force is equals to mass times acceleration. Okay, you get the point. Force is equals to mass times acceleration. O, ganun. So mass, okay, acceleration. Nakanang gyapon siya. Okay, G, M1, M2, right? And then M squared, cancel, and over the radius. Okay, like that. This is radius squared. Okay? Ganon. So, how can you compute the acceleration? Okay, so this is now the radius of this one. Para makapag r, kunin mo ang iyang acceleration. So, acceleration is equal to the velocity over the time, right? Okay, how can you compute the velocity? Okay, you use the kinetic energy, right? Kinetic energy is equals to 1/2 mv squared. Ganon. Di ba? So, naki-kinetic energy. Bigat na point mga palangga kung hitag. Ana, only ni mo. Okay. Ana. Okay. Ana, only ni mo diri. But hindi mo diri ari para maklaro. So, velocity is equals to the square root of 1.000 times 10 to the pila siya? Negative 7 siya, guys. Ako siya, negative 7 to 11 na siya. So, negative 7 over, ano siya? Radius plus 2.5 times 10 to the 6 meter squared. Okay, so how can you compute the radius? Okay, how can you compute the radius? So FC is equals to mv squared over r. Ganon. Right? And then force is equals to mass times acceleration. Ganon. Cancel the mass. Okay? Do we have the acceleration? Yes. Because acceleration can be obtained through the gravitational force constant. Okay? Yeah, this is acceleration due to gravity. You get the point? So, ano na yun? So, radius. The radius is equals to the velocity squared over the g. Acceleration due to gravity. Right? Oh, ganon. So, nanakay ari-ari. Oh, ganon. So, you will say that is gonna be v squared over g. So, it's gonna be r, okay, v squared over 9.81. Acceleration due to gravity. So, this one, okay, v over 9.81, substitute that to here, which is r plus 2.5. So, r plus 2.5 times 10 to the 6. So, this is gonna be v over 9.81. Right? Linear equation. Okay. Sige pa. Okay, so, ano yun siya? Denominator namin guys itong sulbon ha. V plus 9.81 plus 2.5 times 10 to the... Sorry guys. Okay? Nakalitan ko. 2.5 times 10 to the 6. So, ano din na siya? So, improper fraction. 9.81 divided by 1. 9.81 divided by 9.81 is equals to 1. 1 times velocity is equals to velocity. Diba? 9.81 divided by 1 is equals to 9.81. 9.81 times 2.5 times 10 to the 6. Diba math? Okay, 9.81 times 2.5 exponent to the 6. Ano siya? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 2.45 times 10 to the 7. Sakto ba? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. Muna siya. Muna na siya dari nga quantities. Dari ari. Okay? Okay. Naana yun. So, V squared is equals to 1,000, right? 1,000, no, 1.00 times 10 to the negative 7 over this 1. Which is V over plus 2.45 times 10 to the 7 over 98.1. So, isa mo na ba? So, cross multiplication. Right? Cross multiplication. So, okay? Or you will divide first the 9.81 divided by 1. 1 divided by 9.81. There are two methods. Okay, it's gonna be V squared is equals to, ano siya? 0.10. Pwede i-crisscross, then pwede, you should do it individually. Okay, 1, there's another option. 1.02, then this is from the V, meaning to say, V at the top, so this is gonna be the V at the top here. Okay? See? 1V divided by 9.81. So the V will be at the top. Right? So, ganon. Then, 2.45 exponential, oh my gosh, 2.45 exponential to the 2, right? 2 ba na siya, guys? 2, 7. Hindi mo na ako sulat. Maklaro. 7. Charot. Okay? 2.45. Okay, ganon. 2.45 exponent to the 7, right? Diba? Yeah. 7 divided by 9.21. Ganon. So it's gonna be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 2.49 times 10 to the 6, right? Then over sa na siya, anak. Ilaman siya. Okay. Erase. Okay? Now, anaunin mo siya algebra guys, linear equation. Okay, so v squared times v over 0.102 plus 2.49 times 10 to the 6 is equals to 1.00 times 10 to the negative 7. Okay, in this case, we need to divide both by v squared so that it will be cancelled. So here also by v squared, right? Ganon. Tama ba? Yes. So it's gonna be, okay, mo naman divide of square, ano na siya? V over 1.02 plus 2.49 exponential 10 to the 6. Diba? Then 1.00 times 10 to the negative 7 over V2. Ganon. Okay, pila na siya. So 1 divided by 1.02 divided by 1 divided by 1.02 equals to 0.98V. Okay, ganon. And then plus 2.49 times 10 to the 6. Okay, then 1.0 negative 11 divided by V. Okay, so 1.00 something 2 by 2. Okay, divide exponent to the negative 7 divided by 1 is equals to, nagyapon siya. So 1 times 10 to negative 7. But the V squared will be at the denominator. Okay? Anak. So, pila naman na siya. So, saan din mo siya kuan? So, what we will find here is a quadratic equation. Quadratic equation. Okay? Saan man itong formula sa quadratic equation sa algebra? Dito point mga palangga. Quadratic ni siya equation. So, ato siya ni distribution multiplication para sure ang sa banga. So, 0.98. Okay. So, V times V squared. So, V cubed. So, 2.49 times 10 to the, okay, what's this? 6. So, it's not pa siya V2. It's equals to 1 times 10 to the negative 7. Ganun. So, common man niya ang V. Right? Common man niya ang V. So, ano siya? Common. So, V squared. Ano ba yun? So, 0.98V. Diba? And then, ano ba siya? 2.49 times 10 to the 6. Then, 1 times 10 to the negative 7. Diba? Ano na siya? Correct. Diba sa? Okay. Napa siya i-ari. So, divide by V squared. Cancel. And then V squared so na siya, ana. So, pwede na rin mo siya i-divide. Okay, kasi na siya. Ano ba yun? Diba? So, ano din siya? 9.8 0.98 multiplication man times V squared. Ano man, V squared man na siya. May mo siyang V cube, right? V cube siya. Okay? So, V cube niya, V squared times 1 times 11. So, pila na lang siya. Simplify. Nakakaloka. Simplify din mo siya. Okay? So, you get point na mga palangga. Ano din siya. So, 0.98 V, ganun-ganun, plus 2.49 times 10 to the 6 V squared. Okay? Let's be equal over 1 point times 10 to the negative 11. 11 na siya, guys. Then V squared. Pila answer yung anak, guys. Okay, gamitin yung calculus para ma-solve. Okay. Oh yeah, this one. This one. Okay. Okay, ganito rin yung calcube. Pila naman sila ng A gayon na. Okay, nakancel naman ang V. Okay? So, mahitabo ni mo na siya. Din siya, i-times naman lang siya, guys. Then, multiply with V squared. Diba? O, cancel yun. Ganun. So, na siya V squared. Okay? And then, muna siya mahitabo. So, 9.8V is equal to 11. V, siya. So, mag-factor out ka dari ka na siya ka V, guys. Okay? Ganun. Get the point? Okay? Nakuha ninyo, guys? Or wala paghihapon. Okay? But if you know the radius directly of the Earth, then you can compute for this situation. But it's not given. That's why you need to solve for the radius in terms of, substitution with the appropriate radius through letters lang siya. Mura kang nag-derive. Okay? Because it's not given. Right? In your problem. Because if it is given directly, it's very easy to compute. Ano siya? Radius plus 2.5 times 10 to the 6 meter. And you need to know pa siya pilang yung distance. Okay? Muna siya yung final equation. 0.98V plus 2.49 times 10 to the 6 is 1 times 10 to the negative 11 over V squared. Okay? Ganun, this is your equation. Okay? How to put the V squared? You multiply again this V cube. 98V cube plus 2.49 times 10 to the 6V squared is equals to 1 times 10 to the negative 11. Okay? Now, in this case, guys, if you encounter this in a problem solving, and then you have the choices, this is the reverse. If you have the choices, you have to substitute one by one. Letter A, substitute the V, and it will be equal to 1 times the negative 11. So there are also questions like that in the examination. So if this is equal, then the V is correct. Meaning trial and error method. You get the point? Yan ba siya? Trial and error method. Yeah. Okay, trial and error method na siya pwede. Okay, this is a quadratic equation, guys. Quadratic equation. Ano ito quadratic, guys? Quadratic equation of minus b plus and minus b squared minus 4ac over 2a. This is quadratic equation. Take note, guys. Huwag man tayo constant. We have a constant here, but our exponent is cube. In quadratic equation, the exponent is 2. Okay, not 3. Okay, this is only trial and error method. You get the point? Something like that. That's why the answer there has no specific answer. It's in terms of equation. Like this. Okay? You get the point? Anak siya, guys. Then if you try to compute the velocity, then substitute any values of velocity that will be equal here, and that is your velocity. Something like that. Okay. Now, there's another option if you want really. Okay, for example, consider the area or Earth. Our Earth is known to be something like a sphere, right? Area 4 pi r squared, and then you can also have the volume 4 over 3 pi r cubed. Okay, like that. Get the point mga palangga? Now, common siya ang R, right? So, you can compute also the R, but you don't have the volume, you don't have the A. Okay? Now, consider ka atong anak na yun. Force is equals to mass times acceleration. Ganon. Yung consider po ka atong circumference 2 pi R over T. Ganon. Diba? So, but we don't have the time. So, ang imong mabilin, nagyapan siya ay T. Okay, nga equation ang mabilin. You got the point, mga palangga? Okay? Now, if you want that one to happen, so you need to use also the radial acceleration. Saan itong radial acceleration? Mag-direct sa radial. Kinakalimot ko sa formula. Radial acceleration. Okay, pasagay sa akin. Okay, sakit akong tiyan. Okay, sarap. So, ano mo itong radial? Velocity. Acceleration is equal to velocity over time. That right? And then velocity is equals to distance over time. And then we have the velocity is equals to 2 pi r over time. And substitute this 2 pi r. So velocity is 2 pi r over time divided by time, right? So that is your acceleration. Correct? Okay, yeah. 2 pi r mo circumference. So, muna siya. So, ano din? 2 pi r over t times this. This is divided by t pa siya, divided by t, ano siya? So, 1 over t na siya. Okay? 1 over t. So, it will be t squared. Area is equals to 2 pi r t squared. Mauna siya. Ano t squared ba na sa Sotero? Okay. Second squared ba na ubos sa acceleration? And this is all matter. Okay? Ganon. You got the point. Ano siya ang natabo sa imong acceleration. Okay? So, imo rin subject nila sa acceleration. So, mass 2 pi r t squared. Nasa tayo gravitational. Okay? Nga, ano yan? Mass squared over r squared. Cancel. Kuha ka ng radius. Kinaman kay mass. Okay? Ganon. So, kung wala kay time, i-compute niyo ang time in terms of radius. Okay? Inamang mo kay radius dire-ari. Okay? Or radius in terms of time. Okay? Ganon. You got the point? Anak siya mga palangga kumitan. Okay? Again, your answer will be in terms of a variable. Because you don't have the time and you don't have the velocity. Okay. Ano ganun ang situation guys na ayaw pugsa guys if the problem this is all if you found a problem like this, then the choices will also in terms of equation. Letter A, blah blah blah. Let's say kaya siya 2 plus 2 equals to B. B squared it's not all the time na ang answer figure yun siya. You got the point? Again, if you solve a problem like this, in which the degrees of freedom are not equal, there are a lot of unknowns and you have only 2 equations to use, just leave that in that way because most probable the choices there will be in terms also of equation. Let's say A, V cubed plus 2B is equals to 1.2, B, V cubed plus ganun sa siya ang mga choices. Not necessarily na figure yun siya. Okay? Sa problem. You get the point? So, mag-una mo ka, mag-bisod ka ay paminang kay equations and choices, right? But you have also to solve that, okay? Because we are not mastered to encounter that in our classroom instruction. You know, when we are in college or in high school, we are used always to have an answer rightly. You got the point? Figure din siya nga mga answer or something. But examination, like say board examination in the future, there's also a time that the answer will be based on equation. Okay? The answer. Okay, not all the time na figure yun siya yung makuha. Plus ani. Okay? You get the point? Because the radius of the earth is not given. Get the point? So you know the radius of the earth. If you know the radius of the earth, you can substitute directly. But there's no radius given on the earth in the problem. Okay? You get the point mga palanggaing. Ana lang siya. Okay? So, kung imo siyang pugson, let's say gano'n siya orbit. Pugson jud nimo. Okay, di ba ganon? So ano na? mv squared over r, right? And we have also gn squared over r squared. Okay, cancel. Naman kay radius. Pwede sabihin mo kung ano yung radius. Okay, balik na po ka o substitute. Let's see kung makuha niya po yung choices. But since the answer is in equation already, I don't have to do that. You got the point? Ganon. Paano kayo? Radius o. Now, we have the mass. Ganon. Okay? Like that. So, you can compute really what is the radius for that. Okay? You get the point mga palangga kung hitad. So, okay. Acceleration na naman siya. Okay? So, ano siya given sa pamasolve din na nimo. Any question so far? What I'm trying to emphasize, thank you so much for watching, Mr. Cornelio Labuga. What I'm trying to emphasize, if you solve a problem, doesn't mean always that the answer will be figure or number. Sometimes, it should be an equation only. Okay? A, B, C, D, E, none of the above. Ng ganon. Especially in the board examination, namin anak nga question. Okay? So, ay mo pagka-dependent na, I need to get the answer talaga yung number. No, it's not like that. Okay? So, this is the best example of that particular kind of problem. Basta mo follow lang nga sa appropriate formula, bingo. Okay? Ganon siya. Because we cannot solve, guys, because that is not a quadratic equation. If you can remember, quadratic equation, ano ang lang standard formula sa quadratic equation? X squared plus 3x plus 2 is equal to 0. If you try to denote that in the, this x, okay, this 3x, this 2, 2 is your constant, 2 is C, right? B is 3, and your A is 1. So your constants A, B, and C is all number. But we cannot use this one because our equation we obtained in our solution before is x to the cube. So we have velocity to the cube. So this is not applicable to quadratic equation. Okay, so all you have to do is trial and error method or remain the equation as is in the choices. Okay, something like that. Okay, so if this is a quadratic equation, it's very easy. Use the negative b plus and minus b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Memorize this, guys, ha? Okay, I did not review this, but I can still remember that was 25 years ago. Because I understand. Okay? That is 25 years ago in my graduation, but I could still remember the quadratic equation formula. Okay? Because you understand what you memorized. If you don't understand what you memorized, you cannot retain that in your brain cells. You get the point. For example, the Pythagorean theorem. Even though you'll reach 80 years old, you can still remember if you understand what is that all about. It depends also the memory of that person, but what I'm trying to explain, you can still remember if you love that kind of subject. Or it will retain to your brain cells. Okay, ganon. It's not a reason, guys, na I've been working for how many years in the plant and I'm not using the quadratic equation. But take note, you are an engineer. Okay? It doesn't mean that it's an excuse because you are working 30 years from, you are graduated in 1975 and you forgot in 2022. Like that? No, it's not an excuse, right? You get the point? I don't know, this is only my perspective. Okay? Like me, 2000. Okay, now 2022, it was 22 years ago. Sorry, 22 years ago lang pala. Okay, now I can still remember the quadratic equation formula, the slope formula, the Pythagorean formula. I don't review. Okay, I saw this on the spot right now, that's why I'm struggling. I'm struggling, right? I'm using option 1, option 2, option 3, or else if I know, then I can easily get the answer correctly without using option 1, option 2, option 3, option 4. Meaning I don't prepare. Get the point? Oh, ganon. This is on the spot solving. Okay? So, to challenge myself. Okay? Because there's no challenge. If you try to watch how it is being solved and you prepare, it's not a challenge for me. Practice this in your culture. If you are really taking up an engineering course, you should not depend them. You should watch the solution and then you will just rework. It's totally different because you are dependent on how it is being solved. You got the point? This is the character that you should possess as a culture of being an engineer. You need to solve really on the spot before reviewing if you are correct or not, because it is not a challenge that you are knowing already how it is being solved. Okay? You get the point? Good only if this is only how to pass a subject, but we are trying to say we want to learn, right? If you want to learn, so we should not do that.